This week, we list the Tasmanian suburbs which saw the biggest price drop last year. The COVID ban on rental evictions expires. We discuss a potential new direction in zoning legislation and much more. This is all the important news affecting Tasmanian property this week. On Thursday, the Mercury put out a list of the biggest losers in 2020. These are the suburbs which saw the greatest median price drop. First place goes to the unit market in Moona, which saw the annual median price decrease by 17.2%. Congratulations, Moona. Second place goes to the units in Mount Nelson, which saw an 11.9% decrease. Well done. Third place goes to the units in South Hobart, which saw a similar decrease of 11.8%. That's a podium finish, and you can always be proud of that. So just a big round of applause to all those suburbs. If you're looking for a bargain, you might be able to find one there. In other news, the COVID-19 ban on rental evictions expires on Sunday, but the state government has extended its support for renters and landlords. The Building and Construction Minister, Elise Archer, announced that the Rent Relief Fund and Landlord Support Fund would be extended until March 31st as a transition measure. So this makes up to $4,000 available to pay for rent arrears. It had to end sometime. The economy is getting better. It's never going to be perfect. If you're still having trouble with rent after that period ends, please talk to St. Vincent de Paul or some other such charity who will be able to help you get back on your feet. On Saturday, the Mercury reported that the Minister for Planning, Roger Janesh, recently sent a letter to relevant councils to outline a change in zoning. The aim of the letter was to allow greater flexibility for urban development outside Greater Hobart, the urban growth boundary. That's what they call it. The boundary was set to physically limit the amount of residential land that could be developed in the area around Greater Hobart. The initial drafters wanted to create a 50-50 balance between the greenfield sites being developed, which is just land without any pre-existing buildings on it, for example, a paddock, and infill sites, which are underdeveloped lots of land inside areas that have already been developed. So for example, an infill site is a vacant lot of land in the middle of a long-standing suburb. The idea was that they wanted developers and new home builders to take advantage of the pre-existing infrastructure and also limit the rate of urban sprawl. They seem like admirable intentions, but if you've been listening to me for a while now, you probably know where I'm going with this. You know that I've talked loosely and sometimes specifically about government policies which contribute to or alleviate the housing crisis, which raise or lower the cost of housing. And this, my dear friends, is one of them. This is a specific government policy which has contributed to the housing crisis. It's an example of well-intentioned planners making far-reaching decisions without understanding the real-world consequences. Even the very wise cannot see all ends. So that's what I'm trying to get at. But some people in government sit in a room filled with numbers and graphs while pulling legislative levers in some vain attempt to steer the economy as if it were a giant ship and they were its captain. The problem is, if it were a giant ship, they wouldn't even be on it. The only place they can ever stand is on some distant shore, relying on reports of the actual sailors to guide them. That is the nature of statistics. They are far removed and we have to wait for them. By the time we record the appearance of a dangerous iceberg, metaphorically speaking, and the planners receive this report and then determine the right course of action, the ship is usually already sinking. The people on deck should be allowed to drive, and this is potentially a chance to do just that. If you want to see a map of the urban growth boundary and where zoning might potentially change so that you can potentially take advantage of it, I put a picture of the map on our website. You should see a link in the description of this post, or if you're watching on Instagram, the link is in the bio. Clarence City Council Alderman Tony Mulder, who blames the boundary for contributing to the housing crisis, has been pushing for a review of the urban growth boundary and has said the best solution would be to scrap it altogether. Yeah. Moving on, we saw a media release from Jeremy Rockcliffe on the number of new apprentices in the construction industry as a result of the Building Futures program. It's as if he saw last week's edition of This Week and decided to respond. Last week, we reported on the scarcity of builders and construction industry personnel and the effect it's having on the price of housing. And this week, Jeremy Rockcliffe is reporting on the addition of 27 new trainees. A coincidence? I think not. A reason to celebrate? Not really. If you remember from last week, the completion rate for construction apprentices was around 10% in 2016. And if the same rate holds, we can expect a whopping 2.7 more people in the construction industry soon due to that program. So, yay. On Tuesday, CoreLogic's rental market review for the December 2020 quarter was released. It basically restated the diverse rental conditions which Australia has experienced over the last year. As we know, 2020 was strange. Regional markets outperformed capital cities, and capital city unit markets were weak. Some key takeaways of the report were that national rental rates rose by 0.6% over the month of December, taking national rents 1.9% higher over the 2020 calendar year. This is the largest annual increase since 2018. Another key takeaway was that Hobart recorded the largest fall in gross yield for houses last year. It fell from 5.03% in December 2019 to 4.47% in December 2020. Oh, sweet Hobart, thou have seen better days. But it is largely due to the fact that Hobart has seen such better days that its gross yield fell so much in 2020. Hobart's rental demand is heavily reliant on interstate and international migration, and they all but evaporated last year. Finally, CommSec's State of the State reports showed Tasmania is now the best performing economy in Australia for the fourth quarter in a row. Tasmania comes first in 4 of the report's economic indicators, including relative population growth, equipment investment, dwelling starts, and retail trade. Equipment investment was up 7.7% on the decade average, which just goes to show the resilience and confidence of our business owners. They were willing to keep investing in their businesses even after the disruption of last year. Dwelling starts were 23.5% above the decade average, with CommSec stating that home building has been strong in Tasmania because population growth is well above normal and home prices are still relatively low compared with the mainland. Retail spending was 23% above decade average levels in the September quarter. The report states this was due to the successful suppression of COVID-19, increased economic confidence, cash handouts, wage subsidies, and supported incomes. The Premier commented on these results, saying, "These gains do not happen by accident. They are proof that because we have entered the pandemic from a position of strength, with one of the strongest economies in the nation and no net debt, we were able to use our balance sheet as an economic stabilizer and, relative to the size of our economy, deliver the largest economic and social support package in the nation." And you've got to give credit where credit is due. We have done remarkably well compared to the rest of Australia, not to mention the rest of the world. We're not perfect. We never will be. But congratulations do seem in order. That's it for this week. It's Friday. Have a great weekend.